wire intervention, or you can just wait and see and maybe do some of the traditional bits of working. It says just strap it together, and as I say, Shyster's baseline wisdom says use sellotape. Some people maybe make lots of money, thank you, from this by using, I don't know, developing a special bandage. Who does that benefit? The company that's wanted to make profit from their particular bandage. The kind of street wisdom says sellotape does it just as well. Do you get what I'm saying here? That sometimes it's the wisdom of our practice that tells us or shows us what the good results may be. You know, a similar thing that kind of follows that. I was once told of you know, when you're in hospital, they'll often put a cannula into your vein, you know, where other things get attached, so that you can have a drip and so on. And wise old nurses who become very adept at attaching cannulas, you know, in hospital, have their own little way of doing it. And there's these lovely stories of how, I don't know, either a manufacturer or somebody says, actually the better way to attach a cannula is to do X, Y, and Z. So everybody goes on a training course to learn all about the new way to attach a cannula to people. The nurses go back, they try it out in the wards, and actually they find their method works better. So actually they ignore that advice, that research, because their practice says this is the better way of doing it. It's the sellotape example. I'm now going to be using, whenever I do this sort of chat, I'm going to talk about Shyster and the sellotape. As a way of your background information tells you what is the better thing. And it's the same for you with your clients. That sometimes, particularly when you're also sharing your results in peer supervision, you get to know what works better. Okay, so that, if you like, is the cry for practice-based research, as opposed to the research that comes from maybe the academy, i.e. universities or researchers, who, we talk about that as academic research, which we read about and then try to apply to our practice. I'm going to be talking a lot more on this. But if we think about it in terms of research, I mean, how many of you have done research? Yeah, great. Okay. How many of you haven't done research?
What kind of, like a...
Well, that's the question we come to, okay? Great, thank you. Okay.
Well, should I move carefully?
No, I kept it the way I want it.
Are you sure? Yeah. You can move that there.
No, that's fine. It's okay. It's fine.
So, okay. So there are some people who think that they haven't done much research. Okay. What's your understanding of research? Let's try and get a group understanding of research. What do we do when we do research?
Well, we have a topic that we try, and when I was younger, not younger even, but we go to the library or we have books, so we go through different sources to figure out different angles of whatever the topic is.
Yeah. That's a lovely description, where we go and find out as much as we can about something. Yeah, maybe check out resources with an aim to do what?
So I think that a lot of times, I think it's something that comes very naturally to us as just human beings, how we learn how the world works. And it's basically it's starting off with perhaps an inclination almost, right? Like I wonder if this will work, and then that turns into a hypothesis. And then you kind of, we think it might work, but we're not sure, and then we kind of implement it and see, okay, is it true, is it not? And you try to be as objective as possible. And then by the end of it, you see if the evidence or what's happened supports your hypothesis or your inclination, or if it doesn't. Right? And I mean, that's how kids learn also. Or the solutions to sellotape. Shasta had a thing, maybe the tape will work, and she taped it, and then you came back saying, actually, that worked rather well, and so her hypothesis was supported.
Great. And and sometimes like it's our own wisdom that we kind of know, that we use, maybe through our own little trials and errors. But my sense is that all of you, and I think you're quite right, are doing research all the time. When you go to buy something, chances are you're doing a comparing and a contrast. How many of you, like if you've ever bought, I don't know, an item, say a washing machine, don't you go and do the comparing, that you go off and do your research? When you're looking for a car or something, you find out, what has it got that I need, and so on. Which is the best place to go and shop and buy, I don't know, apples. You probably start to develop your own wisdom, in relation to the topic that you're interested in. So we're always, you're quite right, I think we're always doing research.
When you're talking about it, thinking about me, that what do I research so much about? Health and well-being. So I do read a lot about it because I do not want to go into medicine and have medicines for anything. So yes, that's something I explore, and if I've tried it and it works for me, then I start endorsing it to people. If somebody has the same issue and I say, well, this really worked for me. Obviously I'm not saying this is the only way, but like you said, wisdom, that kind of sense that you get eventually why it worked, you have this thing about it and you've actually experienced it. So you start going in that direction. And perhaps somebody will I'll just give them a shortcut coming from my own wisdom. Yes, that's research.
Of course it is, So the idea of research is it's slowly sort of becoming less of a frightening thing. We often kind of think of research as being this terribly clever thing that we, that other people do. And actually lots of clever people do research, but, obviously. But what becomes important is that we're always doing research.
I think for me, like over here, especially with therapy, it's about, so you mentioned wisdom, and I think with research, it's like how do you turn that unconscious wisdom into a conscious tool that you can employ consciously.
Oh, you're like magic to my ears here, because that's exactly what we're going to be looking at. In fact, the whole aspect of our work as as researcher, as counsellors, researcher is really what we're looking at.
But like what she said, a lot of times, I think in peer supervision is other people's also, tools that they have gathered through their research or their experience. That also can be, that is also passed on. So sometimes it's just not mine, I feel, it's also somebody else's experience that has proven. So it's kind of like research in a way as well.
That's exactly what it is. And what we begin to notice, like in peer supervision, like your findings might be X and your findings might be Y. They're both true. Would you agree? Like they are both true. We yesterday we were talking about sometimes being in that place of not knowing, and trying to search for what the right answer is. And maybe it's not quite so clear cut. That they are both true. There isn't this is a better way of doing it. Yeah. They are different ways of doing it. Yeah. And of course, we end up with two different kinds of research, particularly within psychology, which might be slightly different to the kind of research that we're interested in counselling and psychotherapy. Quantitative research, which is all about figures and so on, tends to work on the idea, well, if X number of people have this intervention, does it work? Yeah. So it tends to rely very heavily on figures. Yeah. So then, and actually a lot of psychological research is done in that way, with sums greater than or lesser than.
That's what I was thinking about.
Okay.
I thought that's the kind of research we'll be, like
Yeah,
statistics
yeah.
and data collection and all.
Yeah, well, it is that in part.
Data collection in a different.
Yeah. In fact, that's a really interesting idea, isn't it? Like, what do we mean by data collection? Yeah. Every time, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
remembering the college days when I studied
Yeah.
psychology, we had to do these
Yeah.
questionnaires, go to students, tell them to, sort of, okay, tick this, yes, no, whatever options and things like that, That's what I was thinking about,
Yeah.
but of course in this context of psychotherapy and counseling, it's a different kind of a data collection, so
Yeah.
that's kind of taking the pressure off.
Yeah. It's just a different kind of research. A more qualitative research is less about figures and more about the experience that people have. Yeah. Trying to understand the experience that people have. Okay. There's a lovely little quote that I'm sort of giving you, which is called Wisdom and Grades of Significance, which I'll read out to you. So you may want to listen to this. I really like this. So it's a bit, this is really about, like, what is it that we really see? Yeah. So let's imagine I'm looking at whether my work or my intervention is successful. Yeah. What am I seeing? This is going to be a big question for you. What is it that I am seeing? And this explains something really well. So if we just have a listen to this. So, an animal may see an oddly shaped black and white object. A tribal person, a rectangular, flexible object with curious markings. To a Western child, it is a book. While to an adult, it may be a particular kind of a book, namely, a book that makes incomprehensible, even ridiculous claims about reality. Finally, to a physicist, it may be a profound text on quantum physics. What's important to see is that all the observers are partly correct in their characterization of the book. But all except the trained physicist are unaware of how much more meaningful and significant the object is than they can recognize. And most important, to the non-physicist adult, it is a book that is incomprehensible, even ridiculous. What this example so nicely demonstrates is that when we cannot comprehend highest grades of significance, we can blithely believe that we have understood something whose significance we have completely missed. Yeah. This raises an arresting question. What higher grades of significance, what profound meanings and messages does the world give us that we are overlooking? It is said to a sage, the leaves on the trees are like pages of a sacred text filled with transcendent meaning. And here's a key word, we do not see things only as they are, but also as we are. Contemplative training changes the way we are and opens us to the hidden wisdom and higher grades of significance in transpersonal traditions in the world and in ourselves. So isn't that a lovely idea that, like, in order, there's something about, let's really see what we're seeing here. Yeah. Let's take time to really notice what's there. So it's a bit like, is that a flexible object? You know, or is it kind of a strange, oddly shaped black and white object? What is it, this text that contains profound meaning? Yeah. And it all depends on the way in which we approach the object. Yeah. And maybe the knowledge that we have. So this is going to keep unfolding. I'm going to let this unfold a little bit more. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think this is lovely? I think that's really profound, don't you?
Just the three little words come to me.
Sorry?
The three little words come to me that
Yeah.
says, is that so?
Yes.
Like it's kind of
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. So it is that classic thing, isn't it, with some forms of research that might use a particular way of doing things. In particular, let's imagine, well, here in the UK, one of the most preferred modes of therapy in the UK are those that are evidence-based, meaning those that go through rigorous testing. Yeah. So that means that, like, so in the UK, where, and this is important, we were noticing yesterday around stakeholders, where people want to be treated in the quickest and most efficient way, yeah, they are given a form of treatment, very often more behavioural treatment, yeah, over 6 sessions, because A, it's cheaper and it's efficient. Okay, so then the kind of research that's done, it works with a narrow band of ideas and things that can be proven. So it might be a little tick boxing. So at the end of your 6 weeks, were you feeling better? Yes or no? Yes. And a whole selection of evidence-based things, yeah. Which then shows that actually the best form of therapy, according to this research, is CBT. Yeah. But is that so? Yeah. If we ask that question, is that so?
But they're not even comparing it to another form of theory, right? So in a way that data is already skewed in a way because it's only one way that they do it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So there's that one about a lack of comparison. But can you see what we're saying here? It kind of like, so it puts a greater emphasis on figures. It's much more quantitative. Yeah. It doesn't actually go up to people and say, was this helpful? Yeah, like really helpful. You know, classically we may find, for example, sometimes if you use, like we don't use it very often nowadays, but at this little centre where I am, we used to do a little well-being questionnaire, which was on a Likert scale. That's from 1 to 10, score how well you're feeling. And so it's a bit like, today I'm feeling I have confidence in myself. You know, and you tick 1 to 10 on how true that is. But of course, one of the things that can happen, so let's imagine at the end of the questionnaire on the person's first session, they scored, let's say, 60 out of 100. Okay, they have 6 sessions of therapy, and actually it goes down to 42. is the therapist successful or not? One could argue quite strongly that no, it's not successful because they're saying they are feeling not so good. On the other hand, if we really take time to speak to the person, what we may find is they have a better understanding of their feeling state. Does that make sense? That they may have discovered that they have put down, yes, I'm feeling okay, because that's a default position that a person uses. Yeah, like when you say, are you all right? Yes, I'm fine, thank you very much. Yeah. And actually what we begin to notice is that that's part of my people pleaser that I'm slowly getting to understand. Do you get the kind of like, it becomes problematic, yeah, when we kind of ask questions. So we have to think about, and as we say, often ask that thing, is that so? What grades of significance are we missing here?
Sometimes the question that comes to my mind when I start seeing a client is this client going to be able to financially sustain so many sessions? And sometimes I feel that the work in a session has to be kind of quickened up a little. Sometimes as a therapist you just want to give that person always the space to come out with whatever process she's going through. But sometimes if it's a young girl who cannot afford to pay for even the bare minimum because the cost of transportation and time and all that. So as a therapist I feel under pressure to kind of deliver.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, that's my experience of being in the room, and but sometimes that pressure kind of works for me too.
Yeah.
And it benefits the client because then after a couple of months she will come back or he will come back because for her there was a shift. It was not a good shift at that point, but ultimately she said or he said that it worked for me. So I feel as a therapist under this pressure, am I being fair or just in trying to give her whatever I can in these 10 sessions of me as a therapist, of holding her emotionally, because she just won't be able to sustain 30-40 sessions.
Well, let's keep that open as, rather than saying what's right or wrong, because actually that's simply a reality, isn't it? That people maybe even don't want to work for so many sessions, but maybe we just stay open to the question that we asked yesterday, why are you doing what you're doing? What is success? There's a good research question. What is success in therapy? What do I think is a success in therapy? What does the client think is a success in therapy? Yeah. What do the stakeholders, think is a success in therapy? Yeah. So there's a lot here where we can get taught, what we come into here. We're looking at an outcome. What is a successful outcome in therapy? Yeah. Do you have thoughts on that? But can you see how this becomes one of our areas of interest as a researcher? What is a good outcome? Do you have a sense?
It varies. It should vary from person to person. There is no right and there is no wrong. You just do your best, and it varies from one case to another. And look for the same results. Success can mean different levels and different people.
So that requires us to notice what am I seeing in front of me? Yeah. What am I seeing in front of me in terms of what is successful or not successful? Yeah. What is it that I'm looking at? Yeah.
Sometimes, Jan, there are clients who keep coming to you and they don't have an issue with money, but they keep coming to you. Maybe they're just using that space for being heard, and that's it. They don't even have any end goal in mind. Because I have like a 70-year-old female who comes to me, and she's always saying there's something has to be done, and over the time when she's realized, it's just that space where she can be herself, and that's it. So what is the success there? She still is on all that anxiety issues sitting outside and everything. But if I was to think about the success for her is the fact that she has a space where she can be herself. And she's allowing herself to use that space, and she feels she deserves it, whereas outside her pattern was she didn't feel she deserves it. She's allowing herself to feel that she's allowed to have that space. And I think that's what we need is.
So there's something with, so what we're noticing here then is one of the things in our research that becomes important, and it's often known as client factors. Yeah, you'll start to see that, client factors, which means, you know, how is it from the client's perspective? Yeah, or what characteristics does my client have that are important there? Does that make sense? So the client factors come into it.
For me, how I see it, from what you're saying, and the dis-ease that the client is going through, if that can be helped, if the client can, whatever it may be, being able to function better, being able to find themselves in a better place, you know, being able to do just the bare minimum they are required to do, if that is achieved, to me that is what I said, it varies from person to person.
So there's something about us in our work being able to get as close as we can to the experience of the client. Doesn't it? And what is it that this client wants? What is it this client is expressing?
You know, when we talk about success, like it's so, because I've been sitting here trying so hard to find some sort of thing which is concrete. Like, okay, no, this is it, and then I just remembered something that one of the kids that I work with was telling me. I mean, she's 14 and she was talking about happiness, and she was talking about happiness, and she's like, you know, I realized that happiness isn't an end goal, and that it's in moments, and it's about just feeling the happiness in those moments. And so even when we talk about success, I almost feel like it's difficult for me to see success as an outcome, because, you know, success comes with setbacks. So we're successful in one moment, and then there is a setback in another, and then success again, and to see it like overall, I'm really struggling with that.
I mean, that's a great one, isn't it? Around, like, if you begin to ask questions around success, you know, is it about the removal of a particular behaviour, yeah, or is it more about a deeper sense of meaning in life, which in part is what your wonderful student is kind of just finding, is that actually my happiness is more about the meanings that I create moment to moment. Yeah.
Can I say something? That success, just something that came to me, and it does happen to different therapists at different levels. Success for who? For the client or the therapist? We therapists sometimes, especially when we are, you know, earlier on when we come into this, we are so gauging success by how we feel, you know. It's only when you sort of progress and you experience more and more that you actually start seeing success of for the client, what it means to the client. That is just something that we need to.
My thing is that I've had other people pay for the therapy, so sometimes success is not about what I feel or even what the client feels. It's the person who's paying for it. And if they feel like, oh, they've reached a certain thing, they don't need any more, even the client might feel like, I want to come back.
Yeah.
I might feel like, we haven't gone deep enough.
Right.
But the person is like, the presenting issue is fine, she's fine, he's fine, we don't want to continue.
It's a very tricky issue that we experience from time to time because
Very often the parents of young children or spouses of wives who are dependent on their husbands.
even teenagers, when they come, they're dependent on their parents and the parents say, you've been going for 2 months, nothing's happened, stop therapy.
Or if the student becomes very assertive, the mother doesn't want.
The therapist will be very
It's the
What is
therapist
wrong
who
with therapy for getting too
Brilliant,
confident?
brilliant.
blame the
Yeah.
therapist for
Shows
Places where they've not been able to afford it or one of the whoever's paying is refusing to pay, then I would continue with the therapy anyway because if I feel that it's making a difference, and I have done that until the client is on a place where they themselves say that I would like to try it out on my own now for a certain period of time and keep in touch, or I would, hi, how are you doing, how are you going, some sort of a message. And that has worked for me because getting paid for me is not necessarily the end game. Therapy needs to continue and the client feels it, because it could be my need that I want to take it up. But the client feels that they need to come and it's making a difference in their grades or coming off addiction or whatever, then I do continue.
But then what Jan said yesterday would also be relevant. I would think like that before what you said yesterday, that if you make yourself too cheap, you're maybe becoming, you're taking somebody else's money, because you don't need it, okay fine, They start expecting something like this from everybody. So you don't need the money, that's not the end goal, but there might be somebody who does need the money. I mean, I would have thought like this, what you were saying, because I used to see people free also at one point, but then I thought they don't value your time, they don't
I
think
think
of
is that true? Do you feel that the person doesn't value? Maybe it's slightly different.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of sharing like this, isn't it? Again, if we just keep dropping in, yeah, but is that so? Is that so?
It varies from pattern to pattern, right?
Say again?
It varies from pattern to pattern of
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
It will be different in your case because it happened with me with the client. But the client was paying at one place in his life and was not paying me because the balance was not there. So that that shows.
Yeah. So what we're noticing here is both client factors and the other factor that comes in here, which is therapist factors, which means the therapist position on things. Yeah. What I, as therapist, think is a success. What I, as a therapist, either ethically or whatever, might believe in the scenario.
Also, aren't you taking away the control from the client in one way by not, see you saying, suppose somebody says that I say I'm going to see you for free because you can't afford. That means I'm taking the control away from the client in the sense that if they want to make that decision, if they can make that decision, if it's a block they need to overcome and they decide, we are depriving them of that process. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think you understand.
Yeah, so in other words, you're potentially taking away their agency.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's another way to look at it. I mean, it's okay, I mean, so there could be a genuine case and, you know, you could, but if it was something that you did it as a form of practice or as a habit, then what you just said, yes, taking away,
I guess this arose, I mean, it's so interesting, isn't it, when we have discussions like this, we invariably trip into some of the ethical issues, we just really notice, which is great because that's part of what we're really trying to do here,
In response to Mariam, it's not an always situation.
Yeah.
It's the odd, occasional
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
of an instance.
When I was just scanning kind of clients thinking what is success. It was very hazy. It was very hazy actually for me. And then I was thinking of couple counseling, right? And I find sometimes with couples that, you know, I found myself having to make a real shift there also. Because success at times might very clearly be like they finally decide to divorce and separate, right? So is that like a success, right? Success, is it? Is like, some might look at that when we talk about stakeholders, because as I was thinking, like, there's many stakeholders, right, in any therapeutic relationship, and it's often, it's so much further than just me and the client. There's like, the kids there are stakeholders, the people themselves are stakeholders, the joint families are like it's a lot of stakeholders here, right? And so success is so elusive, I think, it's so foggy. It isn't clear at all.
I'm feeling a lot of pressure as a therapist right now.
It's like,
What is stakeholders?
it's like,
Yeah, even you're talking about them thinking in stakeholders, sometimes one of the spouse actually initiates the therapy. And
Yeah.
they're also a stakeholder because they come up with this thing that we're going to therapy and our relationship is going to be fixed.
Yes. It's, no, this is, I mean, this is great. I mean, even there's a brilliant research question, like, what is success in therapy? I mean, there are lots of books about, about that. In fact, actually, that's often one of the things that researchers do is like to look for what is the most successful outcome. What do you have to do in order to create success in therapy? It's like, go off and do this continual professional development course on how best to work with trauma. This is the knowledge you need in order to work more effectively. Can you see, this is the land we're entering into in the research.
we're humans and we like success. It's it's inbuilt thing in us. When we do something, we want to succeed. I think as therapists, we are entitled to feel successful, but that should not be that level of success or that standard of success should not be imposed on the client. They should have their own, they should gauge their own. You can't say that therapist just doesn't count. We all want to be successful. It's natural. It's normal. We do want to feel that we did a good job. But I might do a very good job, but it might not work so well for my client. So it's success for the client is a different thing. Success for the therapist is a different thing.
Brilliant. So maybe I can just take what you've said, because this feels really, that was really very well put. But for me, there's a question that comes in here. Is that so? So you began, which is what we all do, with a bit of a hypothesis or with a statement of belief. which is we all want success. Yeah, that's your statement of belief. Yeah, and therefore your hypothesis goes, yada yada yada. Yeah, that's. Do you hear what you said there? But like when we're researching, we ask ourselves that question: is that so? I'm starting off with this belief that we all want success. Yeah, is that so?
In my case, yes.
Great. From my side, this is my position. Yeah. This is what's brilliant when we do this self-research bit. It's like unchecked. Yeah. That's how I see the world. Yeah. That's the lens I wear when I'm looking out to the world. We all want success. So if I come across somebody who actually doesn't want to get better, yeah, then I go, they're wrong. Yeah. I need to mould them so that they will achieve success. Yeah. Rather than, and here's another thought, to go, what's life like from your side? Yeah. Can you see what I mean? Yeah. How is your world? How can I understand life from your world, which is different from my world?
It's always very difficult to accept, for a therapist to be okay with the fact that the person doesn't want to get better. It's very difficult, but it has to be. It
Okay.
has to come to that.
Is that so?
For me,
Miriam's great. In fact, I'm going to bring you to all the courses just so I can.
But isn't it from there, the part of success is what the client wants? I mean, I think in so many ways, for me, that's more important sometimes, it weighs more what they want out of it.
But then my question to that is,
Yeah.
right, like, because then we're sitting there and we're thinking, okay, success is giving the client what they need. So let's just ask them what it is that they need, right? But just as we have stakeholders, they have stakeholders as well, right? And they've been told what success is. And so there's that whole thing of, do they really know what they need?
So it's like what they
Because
want and what
large-
they need.
Because large part of probably it's not even in their conscious. They don't even they don't even know, right?
But their
It's
need,
totally-
that changes, right? Their success changes as well, a lot of times.
Yeah,
Is
well,
that success?
Yeah, is that and is that
One client of mine came into the session and said, I don't need therapy. It's because of my whatever, that I have this package from therapy work. So I thought I might as well avail of it. And second thing he said, I am from an army background and I'm the senior this thing and I never cry. So I was just kind of holding his presence because I was very new into therapy myself as a therapist. So, and something so strange happened in that session that after I think 30 minutes he started crying. And he cried and cried and cried like a baby. And I didn't know what to do with him. I mean, he confused me totally. I got very confused, but I felt some satisfaction. And maybe that was my success at that point. That he found that soft spot in himself where he could find himself getting in touch with his repressed feelings.
Yeah.
So maybe that was success for me at that point, which I thought was a very silly thing, feeling happy about him crying, but I thought that it was a good thing that he could get in touch with his feelings. So sometimes success is a very, very strange.
And I believe maybe it was that therapeutic space in that room which made him get out of all the barriers. Just in those 30 minutes.
Suddenly I have this feeling that success is not a place to be, an end goal. It's very fluid.
Yeah.
Even this feeling I'm getting right now as we are talking about it, success is also so fluid.
The setbacks
Yeah.
and how the setbacks aren't necessarily failures either.
Yeah.
Plus, can we measure it?
Yeah.
That's another question. right?
Jan is so pleased right now.
And it's like,
She's like, I am so
how
successful.
can we measure?
But can you see at this stage what we're doing, the most important thing is actually sort of turning one's world upside down a little bit. But actually what we can notice is that we do have a sense of different positions that we can take on this. And some perceived places of wisdom say success is about X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And we just ask the question then, is that so? There is truth to success being X, Y, and Z. Yeah. You know, but is that all? Yeah. And that is one of the things that we are slowly exploring here. And so this is that shift, I think, where we can see therapy less about a science, although it is a science in some ways, yeah. Particularly when we look at some of the newer stuff in relation to neuroscience, you know, therapy is also a theoretically driven concern too, but it is also deeply philosophical. Yes, you know. We are a philosophy of life. Yeah. Why? Because we're always about the creation of meaning.
We're always about it.
The creation of meaning. Yeah. It's one of the kind of areas that you know that is potentially around our health if we're able to create meaning from any given scenario. Yeah, it's not the only one, but I think it's really important that meaning creation is really important for us. Yeah. Like most of the spiritual traditions primarily aim at giving people meaning, yeah, to some of our big concerns in life. What happens at death? What does it mean to be a human being in the world? What does it mean to be a good human being? Yeah? What are the factors that guide me successfully through life? Yeah? These are really profound ways of being in the world that often seems to be part of our human search. What gives comfort to me? Yeah. What is the source of anxiety? There's a lovely Zen story around. I know I've told you it before, but around wisdom. And so the students go to the great Zen master, and they say, "Oh, master, what is the source of wisdom?" And he says, "Experience." "And what is the source of experience?" And he says, "Good judgment." "And what is the source," oh no, not that. "What is the source of wisdom?" "Good judgment," he says. "And what is the source of good judgment?" He says, "Experience." "And what is the source of experience?" And he says, "Bad judgment." Yeah. Bad judgment. Yeah. In other words, you know, this is the kind of knowledge that's gained, yeah, through, you know, whether it's the experience of discovering sellotape's one of the best ways of strapping, you know, your hand together. You know, it straightens a finger. Yeah. To, I don't know, use an elastic band. You know, bad judgment, it cuts off circulation. Don't do that again. Yeah. Did you get this?
Something like this learning in failure also.
Exactly, yeah. And we can, you know, we may be taught that X is a good intervention, but when we do it, we may find for us that isn't how it is. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. That may not be my way of doing it. Yeah.
But that intervention may not work for one and may work for the other.
Yeah, because what we have to do in some ways is really recognise, and we'll come on this later, the life world of the other. I have my life world and all its experiences compared to Anita, who has her life world and all its experiences.